Now we're going to do a little bit of setup that's going to help us create materials and UV map and things like that. So let's grab this front piece here, and we're going to assign it a selection set. We'll call this front set, yes. And we'll call this one, where'd you go? Selection sets, there we are. I should set a podcast for this, but I haven't done it yet. And we'll assign it, we'll call this left side set. And now we'll select the next side, assign it, we'll call this right side set. And I'm going to pause and make the rest of the parts, so you have to watch me do this all. So now I've got a selection set for everything, but I still don't have a bottom. So we can do this a couple of different ways. The easiest way is going to be to use the bridge tool in Modo. So let's grab these edges along the back, select two, then use the up arrow to continue the selection. Do the same in the front, select two, up arrow to continue the selection. And now we'll activate the bridge tool. And go to bridge, and actually I noticed that, yes, we should turn off snapping. And we need to copy the geometry to a new layer. So let's go back to the edges, and we'll copy the edges. Go to the blank layer that we have. We'll call it temp. And now we'll paste in the edges, and we'll bridge them together. So now we should have the exact amount of edges that we do have on the other parts. So 4 perpendicular to the length and 4 parallel with the length, which we do. So everything's good. Let's go back to the temp layer. And we should probably, just in case, run the mesh cleanup. And yes, indeed, it cleaned up some of the errors there. And that happened because we had some edges that we copied and pasted them in. And sometimes that can get funky. And we'll call this new layer bottom. And now with all the parts relatively complete, as far as the base surfaces go, we're almost there. And we need to make a selection set for the bottom as well. We'll call this bottom set. Let's make sure we have front, left, right, top, and back, and now bottom. So that should do for selection sets. And now we can create the materials ahead of time as well. The reason being is that not only will we have materials already set up for us, is that because sometimes selection sets, when you add geometry, they can go a little haywire and cause trouble. But material groups generally don't do that. So we'll start assigning them now. And we'll call this bottom matte. And we'll do the top. We'll call this one top matte. And right side, we'll keep calling them right side matte. And now the front, and we'll call this front matte. And now the left side, this one's left side matte. And lastly, we'll do the back, and this one's back matte. So now that we have our double redundant tags for selection and creating masks and things like that a little later, now it's time to create a UV map. So let's Control-Tab to the UV edit room, Shift-A to bring the object into focus, and let's make sure that we have absolutely no UV maps. And looks like we don't, but let's go through each item one at a time just to make sure. And it's all clear. So no UV maps. If we did, we'd probably just want to delete them at this point. Alright, so now we can create a map for all these items. So let's select them all and then hit new map. We'll call this one full UV. No. We'll call this full box UV. And we'll make, no, none of this is actually patched together, so we might be able to just try the unwrap tool, and sure enough, that worked, and it gave us nice islands here to work with, except that they're kind of tilted and such. So what we can do is pack them, and what we want to do is make sure orient is turned on, and we want to change it to vertical, and we do want to pack and stretch, and let's just hit OK. And now we'll go to the top and the bottom, and let's rotate these. Let's activate the rotate tool with the E key, hold control to constrain it, and then rotate it 90 degrees. And now let's select this island here and rotate it individually. Rotate it 180 degrees so that they're facing the same direction. And now select all these ones that have the curved edge here. Change the action center to local, hold control again, and constrain it again, and we'll rotate them 180 degrees so they're all facing the same direction. And now we'll turn on based on bounding box, 5-degree gap, turn off orient, and then we'll repack them like so. And that's looking pretty good. It's not perfect, but the idea is that we have our UV map already laid out with our basic shapes, and hopefully it should make our life a little bit easier and have a little bit less UV mapping to do later on. And the problem though is that once we model outside of these islands, for example, if we bridge these edges here, and let's grab these in the 3D viewport. So these two islands, if we bridge those together, there will be polygons connected in the UV viewport as well, and we really don't want that. So we'll try to use these selection sets in the UV map. So the reason we laid out the UV map like this ahead of time is that it might actually help us a little bit later on when we go to create more complex UV map. Right now it's fairly low poly, and this is just a good time to get it laid out, because later on we're going to have some crazy nooks and crannies that are really difficult to get into. So it can get a little unwieldy at times, even for something as simple as this box.